Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are finally able to get across to you. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so glad that there are a good number of us that were enthusiastic about being here today. Yes, we already have 5 of you here on board. This is really amazing. Yesterday, the turnout was not the best, and I'm happy that we are pumped for tonight's lesson because it's going to be a very insightful one. And I'm hoping that you're going to keep the comment section alive with your questions, with your comments, because the more active we are, the more we are able to glean from the lesson. I'm going to put up my slides so we jump right into whatever it is that all the good stuff that I have prepared for you today. Please let someone else know that we are already live. I know there are a couple of you who got here earlier, but because I wanted the numbers to build up, I decided to hold off until we had a good number of you available before launching the session. It's always important to catch your lessons live because there are so many that find it difficult to go back and get replays. So getting as many of you in class as possible is the best go-to strategy. I'm happy that so many of us have been able to make out time to be here to listen to the lesson that we have for you today. We're going to have our final life lesson coming up tomorrow. So be sure to tune in for the last. We're going to have our final guest speaker coming on tomorrow. And so tomorrow is going to be the end of our live sessions throughout the span of this particular back to school webinar 2025. Great. So slides are here. I hope that you can see and hear me clearly. I'm going to jump right into the good stuff that I have for you today. We've been talking about so many things that you need to bear in mind as concerns preparing your child to go back to school, but also accompanying your child profitably, being that secret ingredient, taking your place as the secret sauce for your child this academic year. And I'm hoping that the feedback I'm going to get from so many of you is one of how your positive involvement, how you've been able to challenge yourself out of your comfort zone to be able to be an active part of your child's academic journey. So, of course, you know by now that your role is not just to pay the fees, but you have to get involved, right? At the level of the school, you need to roll up your sleeves and partner with your child's school. You need to, get involved, get your hands in there, share your ideas, be a part and parcel of the journey because by now you know that you are the architect of your child's academic journey. You're the architect of the whole experience for your child. You are the one responsible for creating the environment in which your child is supposed to thrive. All right, so you're the architect of your child's learning environment. So say that for me in the comments. Say, I am the architect of my child's learning environment. You're the architect of that environment. You have the power to recruit the resources that are required to help your child thrive. So if your child is not thriving, the first place to look at is in the mirror, right? Look at yourself in the mirror. That's where you look first. You look at yourself in the mirror and then you dig deep so that you can find the resources that are needed to help your child get back on track. Great. I'd like to hear from you what your experience has been. Have you started putting into practice these strategies for preparing your kids to transition? Yes, there are some there's some tips that were shared there that might seem so small, but they are pretty powerful, right? To help you be able to help them transition psychologically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, in every aspect. Our children must be ready for that first day of school so that they hit the ground running. So many kids are going to pick up or adapt to the pace of the school season, maybe even a month into the school season. And that can be very costly, particularly for a child who might be in an examination class. If you lose up to a month because you're still trying to adapt, because you're still struggling with the holiday euphoria, you might find your child lagging behind. All right. So don't take those tips, those strategies for granted. Today, we're going to be looking at nurturing the love for learning. We're going to look at how parental involvement is the key for nurturing the love for learning, right? What you know and what you're doing with it is what is going to determine whether your child, whether that love for learning that they are born with. Mind you, every child has the capacity to learn. Every child is born with the love for learning. It doesn't matter the disability, it doesn't matter the special needs, it doesn't matter whatever you might be looking at as a limitation. Bear in mind that at the time of birth, every child comes to this earth with the love for learning. But where does it go to? How come most of us end up just reading to pass exams and not desiring knowledge or seeking to learn, to know more, to improve ourselves? Where does it die? What kills it? Okay, so you're going to see in this session how you are instrumental. You are the guardian of your child's love for learning. Say that for me in the comments. Say, I am the guardian of my child's love for learning. Because indeed you are, right? If you are the architect of their learning environment, then you are the guardian of their love for learning. Because what you know and how you are priming their learning environment is what is going to preserve and nurture their love for learning, causing it to grow and thrive. And that is the key to raising a successful academic, to raising your child to be someone that learns in and outside of the classroom. Great. I'm sure you can see my slides clearly. We're going to be looking at how to nurture the love for learning by your involvement. But we're going to lay more emphasis on how to create that learning environment at the home front. I mentioned during the morning lessons that the learning environment for children is twofold, right? It's in two parts. The first part of it, and the most important part of it, is in your home, right? Because that is the major learning environment for your child. But then the second part of it is at school. That's why the right school choice is so paramount for the work that you have to do in your child's life. All right. So how do we go about creating the love for nurturing the love for learning? How do we prime the learning environment at the home front? So the purpose of this session is to inspire and educate you on how to support your child's academic success by complementing what is being done in school with your efforts at home. So many parents believe that helping out with homework is that's it, right? You've done your part. Most of us, like I said, we've discovered on this journey, most of us just pay the fees, help with the homework, get them to school every morning, and we know our job is done. No, you have just scratched the surface. All right. By now you should know that if that's all you're doing, you're just barely scratching the surface. There is a lot more potential that you can unearth if you would just roll up your sleeves and get more involved in your child's journey. So success for your child's success depends on how you are complementing what is happening at school with your efforts at home. That's what we're going to be focusing on in this particular session. Great. So remember this quote, right? This is a key quote that I use every year at the back to school webinar, because at the end of the day, the most overwhelming key to a child's success is the positive involvement of the child's parents. All right, whether you're not the natural born parent, so long as you're the guardian of the child, we are talking about you. The most overwhelming key, the most overwhelming determining factor of a child's success at school, success in the academics, is the positive involvement of the parents. Because yes, parents can be involved negatively, right? If you're here and you're one of those parents that usually goes to school to start trouble, you're like, they know me. When I come, everybody, I'm going to put everything to a stop. You are going there to fight. If you're a troublesome parent, then know that your involvement is negative. And in that sense, you are having the contrary effect. All right. So the positive involvement of parents is the most overwhelming key to a child's academic success. Never forget that you are the secret ingredient. All right. You are the secret ingredient. So for a child to thrive and for your child to thrive academically, to attain their full potential, you must see success as a collaboration. All right. So let this be the end of you saying, this school is not a good school. My child went there is not doing well. I'm going to change the school. That's not the problem. All right. If you only see the problem outside of yourself, then you don't even understand how to begin to support your child. All right. Because it has to be a collaborative effort. You can't leave it all in the hands of the teachers. You can't leave it all in the hands of the school. You have a bigger part to play than all of these other parties. School alone cannot raise a thriving learner. The home is where the mindset for learning, all right? Your child's mindset is the most important part of this whole equation. Most of us, like I said earlier at the beginning of this particular journey, most of us are raising dependent learners. You are preparing a heavy burden for yourself. If you're raising a child who is not learning to progressively take the lead on their journey of learning, on their academic journey, you're setting yourself up to prepare for GCE alongside your child, as though you're the one writing. At the end of this session, at the end of this Back to School Webinar 2025, for those who are attending this for the first time, the goal for you this academic year is to, even if your child is in nursery school, is to nurture a certain level of independence where your child is able to lead themselves. Your child is able to take charge of their learning because they are in love with learning. That's the goal. All right? That's the goal. In my home, nobody does reminders about homework. My kids, from the primary to the, now I don't have a nursery school child anymore, primary to nursery, everyone takes the lead. They are the ones leading on their journey. And during the holidays, learning doesn't stop. We don't do holiday classes, yes, but learning continues. All right? And the children are leading the way. They are the ones bringing in the curiosity, asking the questions, taking out books, keeping track of their reading, trying to share with me what they are reading. That is how an independent, that is how a child who has been nurtured to become independent on their journey of learning is supposed to look like. All right? So where the love for learning is either nurtured or neglected all depends. Whether the love for learning is either nurtured or neglected depends on the mindset, both of the parent but also of the child. So your involvement is not just helpful, it is essential. But it's important that your involvement is positive and not contrary. All right? Now, Oprah Winfrey, I'm sure most of us here know Oprah Winfrey, right? Popular talk show host. Oprah Winfrey credits her, she credits her, she credits her grandmother for creating a learning-rich home environment that taught her how to read before the age of 3. Wow, that's amazing. So she often talks about this particular story, and when she's talking about the learner that she is, the love for reading that she has, she gives the credit to her grandmother. So every child needs that somebody in their environment that will light that fire inside of them, that will cause them to always be drawn towards learning, to always be eager to learn, to improve themselves. That is a gift. If you can do that for your child, you've given them a gift that will keep on giving. All right. So that early involvement for her, of her grandmother, laid the foundation for her lifelong love of learning. Those of you who know Oprah Winfrey, I think every month every month? Yeah, every month she has like a book reading club or something where she picks out a book of the month or something like that. And if she picks your book, just know you're going to sell out. All right. So that's how big of a reader she is. So she's someone who loves learning. And it's often said that readers are leaders. If you look at the people who are leading the world today, they are readers. So if you want to raise a child that will make impact, all right, you have to look beyond just reading to pass exams. Most of us only say, go and read, only when they know exams are coming or only during school time. What about during the holiday period? How much reading have your children been doing? How many books do you have in your home? I tell parents often that if you come to my home, you'll be surprised at the number of books that are there. Most times when we are doing a review of our books, we have books heaped in the living room like that. And it's not going anywhere. My kids don't want to part ways with those books because they are in love with reading. We read multiple times a day. All right. So you cannot raise a person that will impact their world if all they do is spend time on the screen. Most of what your child needs to lead tomorrow is hidden inside of pages. I know there's AI today, but if you want your child who has a brain that is working, you want to get them flipping those pages and not just of the school textbooks. All right, not just of school textbooks. So success at the end of your child's academic journey is the delicate balance between dedicated and skillful teachers, enthusiastic and committed parents, motivated and empowered learners. Those are three different things. So think about a scale that has three balances. I don't know, three of those platform things, right? I know the legal scale has two, but think about the balance for academic success. It needs three things. All right, it needs a dedicated, skillful teacher. Remember, that's a learning environment at school. It needs an enthusiastic and committed parent who is the architect, right, of the child's learning environment, and it needs a motivated but also an empowered learner. So your child needs motivation, your child needs to be empowered. That's why you have to motivate resources, because that's how you empower your child. Let's keep moving. So remember, one of my watchwords, what I keep telling parents, no matter the visibility your child may have, no matter where your child may be now on the academic ladder, there is no such thing as a dull child. It doesn't exist. If you understand just how, human beings are made, if your child has a brain that is working, there is no such thing as a dull child. Every child has intelligences. There are different kinds of intelligences. Just because a child might not be first in class does not mean they are dull. All right? Every child can learn. Now, I love this quote by Albert Einstein, where he says that everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. Can you imagine trying to say, "Oh, this fish cannot even climb a tree. This fish is so stupid. This fish cannot." But it's a fish. But what if you happen to place that fish inside of water? You'll be amazed that the same fish that struggled to climb the tree is able to outswim every other creature that lives on land. There is no living creature on land that can swim better than a fish, because the fish was made to navigate the waters. So same way you should look at every child. Just because your child is not topping the class, just because your child is usually in the bottom 10. I keep telling you parents that when I teach passionately parents who have learners, it's because I know the pain. I know the distress of having a child who is not thriving academically. All right. And I know the difference, what the difference it makes when you, the parent, recruit the resources, the knowledge you have to create a learning environment for that child, that same child that struggled to begin to thrive. All right. So I have a child who has been in bottom 10, who was there for 2 academic years, bottom of the class, and how this child is able to thrive and move from there to A's. He's not topping his class, but he's doing extremely well comparatively. So there's no such thing as a dull child. So your child is a seed with unlimited potential. All right. Think of yourself as the farmer and the school as the environment in which the child has to grow. That's where your child will express their potential. All right. That's where your child will express their potential. So remember that you need to think of the balance required for academic success as a 3-legged stool. All right. I'm sure most of us have seen those stools that have 3 legs instead of 4. There's some stools that have 3 legs. If you break off one of the legs, the stool cannot balance. It's going to fall off. So if one leg is weak, let's say the parent's involvement is weak, you see that the balance can easily be toppled. So the whole structure depends on those 3 legs working well together. So your role is not just to support, but to stabilize the entire learning journey. So you're the most important of those 3 legs. Empowered learners don't just show up, all right? They are cultivated through consistent encouragement, through structure, but also emotional safety at home. Learning has an emotional component. That's why a stable home environment is a very important ingredient for academic success. You see all this yelling? You see all this helter-skelter in the morning? It works against your child when they go to school to sit down and learn. You may not see the connection, but I promise you, it sets the wrong precedent for your child before they enter the classroom. Because learning doesn't just happen when they sit down in the classroom. It is connected to everything that happened before the child entered into the classroom. Think about the child that gets bullied on the assembly ground every blessed day. Every day the child goes to school in the morning, is already worried about the fact that they're going to get bullied, for this. Maybe your child does not have the right pair of socks. And think of those of us who are in boarding school. I'm sure you can relate to this, right? You're going for morning devotion, and you know that something is wrong with your sandals. You know you have on the wrong uniform. You already know that you're going to be in trouble. You are anxious. And that anxiety puts your body in a state of stress. And stress is the number 1 enemy of learning. So what will happen on that assembly ground to you will not just end there. That day in class, you'll not be able to focus. So that day might already be a blank day for you. Now, take that same experience and look at your child who is at home. every morning before the child goes out, there has to be crying, there has to be stress, there has to be trauma, and yet you are worried why your child goes to class and is not able to do very well. So it's all connected, all right? The environment at home is as important as what is happening in the classroom. So remember, before I go to the next slide, that there is no such thing as a dull child. Your child is a seed with unlimited potential. And that seed expressing its potential depends on the knowledge and the skillfulness of the farmer, which is you, and the environment in which that farmer chooses to plant that seed. Now, hear this. I'm sure most of us, we know Albert Einstein. When we talk about geniuses, all right, one of the first things that, the first people that anyone will call will be Albert Einstein. But guess what? He was labeled slow as a child. Go and do the research. Read up about Albert Einstein. He was labeled as slow. But his parents created a home environment that was filled with books, music, curiosity, and that environment, his seed, his potential in his seed was only allowed to be expressed because his parents took the initiative to create the environment that allowed him to thrive. All right, so begin to see your child as a seed with unlimited potential, and you as the one in charge of preparing the environment that they need to thrive. Another example that you always hear me quote is Thomas Edison. We have lights today because of Thomas Edison. And he was sent away from school saying that he cannot be taught. Your child cannot learn. That's what they said. But his mother, like I said in the first session, you decide what label gets put on your children. Listen, teachers label children. If there is one child that you have to be like a mother hen over that child, is the child that struggles academically. Because for that child to break free from that position where they are, they desperately need an environment that does not place limits on them. My number one battle when I was working to get my child to, come out of his struggle and begin to thrive was in ensuring that his environment did not place limitations on him. So the teacher, I was in school almost on a daily basis. If you say any negative word on that child, trust me, just know I'm going to show up. All right, because I had the kind of relationship with my children that will enable them know what to bring to me. Mom, this is what the teacher said today about me. Teacher said this. The moment I see my child, I already know that something happened that was upsetting, and I begin to investigate what happened. The teacher said I'm stupid. The teacher said I'm an idiot, and I'm like, what? I don't go there to fight the teacher, but my job is to ensure that I read the environment of anything that might be a limitation for that child that is struggling to raise their head. But most parents are not even aware. Every day, the teacher calls your child stupid, dull, foolish, and the child keeps struggling. And you keep thinking that it's just because the child is too dull to learn. Meanwhile, the environment does not allow them raise their head. Right? So just like Thomas Edison, remember that you decide what labels are placed on your child. If you refuse to put a negative label, do not allow anyone else to do the same on your children. No matter whether your child is the one carrying all of the whole class. Refuse to label the child based on their struggles, but on that unlimited potential that they carry. All right, let's keep moving. So remember, you're the most important piece on your child's journey. I'm not going to dwell on this so much again because we've done this already. Just as the farmer is the most important part of the equation for the seed's expression of its potential, you are the most important person. So remember, the school is not absolutely responsible for your child's success. Never ever leave that kind of responsibility in the hands. It doesn't matter how good they are. I don't care if it's the American school or it's the heaven school, whichever school. Never leave that responsibility absolutely in the hands of any school. All right? Never do that. Okay? Let's look at the levels of parental involvement. Now, we are trying to understand what our role is on our children's academic journey. Let's see the levels of parental involvement. Now, let me just go through some research that I dug up for this particular session. It's interesting to know how powerful and how far-reaching parental involvement is. When we talk about it's the most important thing when it comes to academic success, you might just think it's just about passing exams. But listen to this, all right? The involved parent influences or positively affect academic performance, right? That's one of the direct links. But the involved parent will also play a great role in nurturing healthy social and emotional development for their child. Let me enlarge the slide so you can see clearly. I'm sure you can see better. All right. So the involved parent will also nurture your involvement, nurtures your child's social and emotional development. Now, let me just share this example from my own experience. Now, my kids, there's a kind of confidence my children have about school. And it's not necessarily because the school is perfect, but I realized at some point that it was because they know that if anything goes wrong, mama or daddy will show up. There is a confidence that a child has that even when it's not working, they know that their parent will show up and everything will be okay. That's what keeps them smiling every morning when they go to school. I've shared the story. I think for those who follow me on Facebook, I shared the story about one of the mornings. Oh, I think it's in my book Connected on Purpose. One of the very first stories in that book, I talk about my then toddler. One day he had a problem, he couldn't sleep, and I was struggling with my own issues and giving him what he needed in that moment. But what the essence of that story is the fact that just by telling him that tomorrow I'm going to come see your teacher and fix the problem, the child just went to bed, because there is a confidence that children have. There's an emotional safety that they have, even if the school or the teacher might not be at its best, because they know that you're going to show up and you're going to try to at least make it better. Every time my kids came to tell me that, oh, this was happening at school, the teacher is doing this, the next day they go to school, they're coming, because they know that if they have told me that, if they have told my husband and I that, one of us is going to show up in school to address the problem. So there is an emotional safety that children who have involved parents have that kids who do not have. The kids who don't have that usually deal with a lot of anxiety, particularly when they have a very harsh or brutal teacher. All right. So your involvement nurtures social and emotional development for your child. Your involvement influences the culture of the school. Mind you, it is the parents that indirectly dictate the culture that the school adopts. A school that has a large population of uninvolved parents will usually have a culture that might not necessarily be in the best interest of the children, because the parents really don't care much. All right. Communication is enhanced when you're involved. The learning environment is primed positively when you're involved. Your child is more motivated when you are interested in their academics. You know, that parent that never asks how was school, the parent that never, takes interest in what's happening in school, shows up for PTAs. Now, I share the story often about in my kids' school, we have the parent-teacher meeting after every secret. That means that if they have three tests for each term, you have to show up in school 3 times. And this is good because there are parents who don't. For me, I show up more than that. But parents who don't, at least it forces them to show up. But guess what? There are parents who still do not have. What does the school do? The teacher, there is an attendance sheet that parents have to sign. The next day in school, that list is read. The kids actually come and go through the list to see if their parents came, because there's some parents who will come and not even tell their kids. And you will see my children always tell me, oh, this person was so sad because his mother or father did not come. So parents don't realize how important it is to show up for these things. It motivates your child. All right, it motivates your child. Now, reading achievement, when parents are involved, children easily pick up positive learning habits like the love for reading. And you also help build a strong social network for your child just by being involved in your child's learning. Let's carry on. Now, we're going to look at the levels of parental involvement. I'm trying to raise against time here. We're going to look at the levels of parental involvement. So the first level of your involvement has to be to create that learning environment through nurture and also structure. So the learning environment you create provides nurture of their love for learning, but it also provides structure around their learning. Children need learning to be structured. If not, when there is chaos, learning cannot really be effective. All right. Now, your other level of involvement is through nutrition. That's still part of the learning environment, but to collaborate with the teachers and then partner with the school. collaborate with the teacher and then partner with the school. So it's not just about showing up for PTA meetings. That's good. It's a great step for partnering with the school, but it's about creating a learning culture at home as well. That structure I talked about around learning is through routines, the nutrition you're giving your child, the emotional support, and then by extension, the collaboration with the teachers. Let me share with you a quick story again. Michelle Obama's mother is called Marianne Robinson. All right, and she, if you've studied Michelle Obama, she's a very she's someone who loves learning, just like Oprah Winfrey. This is somebody who she reads. She's very, very intellectual. When you listen to her talk, this is a woman who, she has her head is in the right place. In fact, all right, she's very inspiring. So her mother's name was Marianne Robinson, and according to the story, her mother maintained a strict routine that encouraged reading, but also held high expectations of her, all within a modest. She didn't grow up rich. She didn't come from a rich background. They were modest. They were not poor either, but they were just modest, right? Middle class. But that environment is what shaped Michelle Obama's academic excellence and leadership. I truly believe that there will be no Obama, what's his other name? The President Obama, without his wife, Michelle Obama. She had a very strong positive influence. When you listen to their stories, she had a very strong, positive, though background influence on his success even as a president. All right. So, and she credits her intellect. She credits Barack. Thank you, Barack Obama. I don't know why I forgot. All right. She credits that her intellect, her love for learning to her mother. Will your child be able to say the same of you? That's a question that you need to ask. All right. So you see the people who make impact in the world today. Sorry. People who are making impact in the world today have a strong learning culture. They're not just coming from a place where they were reading to pass exams. Most people who learn, who learn because they love learning are people who make impact. You can't separate the two, because they are people who are constantly trying to bring change. They're innovative. Don't raise a child that will just go and look for a job and settle there and they've had their own piece of the cake and that's it. I don't know. There's a part of me that strongly is repelled by people who are complacent, people who are just looking for the bare minimum to just hang on. And somehow I don't really blame them, because everybody's mindset is shaped by where they are coming from. Most people were just taught to just pass exams to please their parents, pass exams to get by, to just finally get the job, and then that's it. There's more to life than just passing for that. Someone says throw more light on. I'm gonna throw more light on nutrition. All right. Remember, one of the things you get from this session is recipes, and we're going to talk about nutrition. Don't worry, we still have a few days before the end of the session. So the right learning environment, what's that all about? The learning environment is where your child learns, home and school, all right? And you are directly responsible for the home. You can't blame anyone else for the home, because that is your responsibility, okay? So the school may be outside your control, but the home is your domain. And the good news is that the home learning environment has the overall greatest influence on your child's love for learning. Now, this is going out to encourage parents who are in Cameroon in particular, because like I said earlier, there is no perfect school. Here in Cameroon, you will hardly find a school where the kids are not, there is at least one teacher there who will be harsh. You're going to find things like that. We're still in an environment where many people still believe that this is what children need to learn. All right. And I'm one of those people who is working really hard to ensure that we create a system in Cameroon that moves far away from that, because we cannot raise people who are innovators if we are constantly trying to teach them through fear. Fear and learning don't go together. They are enemies. All right. Fear only raises people who read to pass, not people who read to know. Okay, so the school may be outside your control, but the home is your domain. And guess what? If your child sees learning as a joyful, celebrated part of daily life at home, they will carry that mindset into the class. When there is a joyful learning environment, a home where failure is not condemned, is not harshly criticized, where mistakes are not, met with so much indignation, guess what? Your child goes into the classroom with, with a zeal for learning. So it starts from the home. You can't separate that. It starts from the home. All right. So it's a space where a right learning environment is a space where children feel safe to learn. Please note that word safe. Safety is required for learning. And I'll tell you why. Remember, I said earlier that learning is equal to failing repeatedly. That's learning. Most of us are so, even as parents, we are coming from a background where we are so afraid to fail that you realize that in your life you don't really try out much. You don't take much risks because you're so afraid to fail. You're always in a box because it's safe. You want to always just be in your safe box, And we are doing this same thing to our children where we make failure so terrifying that our children will always just seek out what is very comfortable for them. Mistakes are like the enemy because you have taught your child to be afraid of them because of how you respond to them. All right. So learning needs to be safe, and the learning environment cannot be considered right if there is no safety. If your child is not safe enough to fail. Because what does failure do? I know most of us are, when I talk of failure, most of us are afraid of failure. We're thinking, oh, if my child fails, oh, I don't want my child to fail. That's why we put teachers under pressure and they start doctoring results and, teaching children what will come in the exam, and the children give us those results and we think the child is learning. All right? There is no learning without failure. Parents are always shocked when I say I'm always happy when I see my child, particularly the child of mine who is always at the top of the class. I actually am joyed when he fails a little bit. You know why? Because he learns a lot more from that failure about himself, about his potential. He doesn't define himself only by the fact that he's always first in class. But the day he fails, it might be crippling for him and he might never be able to recover from it. Take it from someone who is to top the class, got to secondary school, almost entered bottom 10. It took me almost the entire 5 years of secondary school to be able to understand that I am not defined by my class position, that my potential is not limited to just that. Because I was so acquainted, I was so used to being at the top, and I didn't even need to put much effort for that to happen. When I got to secondary school, I didn't know it was the meeting point of several stuffongs from different schools, and I was trashed almost the very back of the class, to the very bottom of the class. It took me a lot to get back on track. All right, it took me a lot to get back on track. So if your child sees learning as a joyful, celebrated part of daily life at home, they will carry that same mindset into class. And remember, a right learning environment has to be safe above all things. So the child who is afraid of homework, the child who doesn't want to go to school, you must be able to question, what is my child afraid of? One of the things I tell my kids often, we are not afraid of doing hard things. We are not afraid of failing or making mistakes, because everyone makes mistakes and we learn from our mistakes. Children need safety to be able to learn effectively. All right. So the learning environment is home and school. And remember, the parents are indirectly responsible for the school, but they are mostly responsible for the home. So the 4 key areas of the home learning environment. Let's talk about that before we shut down. The 4 key areas that make the home learning environment the right learning environment, all right, that nurtures that love for learning. The first component of the that will make the home environment the right key, the right environment, is structure and routine. You must eliminate chaos. Chaos is the enemy of learning. If you are here and your home does not run on structure, you are already standing against your children's success. Your child may be first in class, but you might be shocked to realize that that is not even their peak potential. You know, many parents who have kids who are at the top of the class, most of them they actually become complacent. They're like, what am I doing? They back to school every night. My child is already my child is always at the top of the class. My child is very intelligent. You know, we define intelligence by a child who passes exams. Again, I've told you, I know of cases where these children who are topping their classes, taking all the prizes, are kids who are tutored by the same teacher that teaches their class. And guess what happens during those sessions? The teacher will bring will teach the child what will come in the exams. So you realize that that's not a true test of your child's capacity, of your child's potential or intellect, because your child is simply reproducing what has already been taught to them. All right. So the child has an advantage that other people do not have. So don't define intelligence just by your child's ability to top the class. That's why the parents who come to me, oh, my child was doing so well in primary school, always at top of top 3, top 2, goes to secondary school and is at the bottom of the class, has been like that, has repeated one class, I don't know what to do. Go back and look at the child's learning environment coming up. Was it one that nurtured independence? Was it one that prioritized class position over nurturing the healthy learning habits in the child? Most people end up raising children who cannot sustain their own learning because it's all about just passing tests or just, topping the class and all of that. So remember that the enemy of learning is chaos. When you eliminate chaos, when you reduce, when you create a structured environment at the home where there's order, it reduces anxiety. All right. Structure and routines help reduce anxiety because it creates a big part of the safety that children need. Now, let me tell you something about structure that helps children helps nurture the right learning environment at home. Is the fact that when there is structure, children know what's expected of them and they can easily win. They can choose to win. All right. And when kids know what's expected of them, they thrive, including when it comes to their learning. So consistency breeds success. Children thrive when they know what to expect, and a predictable routine. When a child knows that when I wake up in the morning, I do this is the reading time, this is the playing time. There's a time for everything, well defined. It helps your child to thrive. All right? And reduces that anxiety, but it also builds discipline. Remember, I've said you must strive to raise your child to become progressively independent as a learner. Without that independence, it means your child lacks discipline. Those are the children that will go to boarding school and go from top 3 to bottom 3. And the parent is concerned. I don't know what's happening to my child. This child was very intelligent. Now the child is surely just lazy. Not laziness. You do not build the discipline required to help your child sustain their own learning. I do not encourage my children to go and study or to go and read. We don't do that in our home. We don't encourage you to do homework. All right? Because there is a system that helps the children take charge of their own learning. That's the advantage that structure brings. You cannot build a right learning environment at home without structure. All right? If you're here, you don't know what structure is, you don't have structure in your home, I encourage you, reach out and get my structure guide. All right? It's going to help you. Now, the second key area is the use of the screen. Of course, you know that screens can never be absent from this conversation. They can never be absent from this conversation because screens are not evil, all right? They have a part to play when it comes to learning. But when screens are unmanaged, when they're not properly managed, screen time will not only steal the focus that your child needs to help them do well in the classroom, but it also steals the time that could have been used towards profitable learning. So don't let the screen steal your child's focus, because without that currency, they will struggle academically. There are kids who are very intelligent, but because they cannot focus. You see a child's script, the child has solved the problem very well. Instead of putting equal to, put your answer, underline it. The child just write formula, write workings, but the answer is not there. The child cannot get the point. There are many kids like that. They lack focus. All right. And there is nothing the parent is doing to help the child build their focus. Rather, there is unmanaged screen time that further takes away from the child's, whatever is left of the child's focus. So you must set boundaries that honor learning. You must set boundaries that help guard and build the currency that your child needs for them, which is focus. Children who lack focus, trust me, I'm currently working with, I have 3 parents currently enrolled in my specialized focus program. And you need to see just how damaged the focus of these kids are. It's so heartbreaking. And the amount of work it's taking for these parents to, invest in just trying to rebuild what the screen has taken away. I don't care how rich you are, and you can buy 10 screens for your child. Trust me, you that money is better invested into books and other things that will build your child's mind. Because what it will cost that child is something that, you know it's gonna be too much. All right. So set boundaries for recreational screen time to ensure that it doesn't interfere with study time. Again, that goes back to structure. The third key area for building the right learning environment at home is that you have to build skills. You have to build skills. Learning in the classroom is not two-dimensional. It's three-dimensional, meaning that there are other competencies that your child will need to have to support their learning in the classroom. One of those competencies is emotional regulation. And guess what? The screen also negatively impacts emotional regulation because kids who are overly exposed to screen struggle with regulating their emotions. That's a skill that kids will need to have. All right. So there are certain things that kids will need to be able to develop, certain skills that they need that will help support learning in the classroom. They call those skills as a whole, they call them executive function skills, EFS. Executive function skills, working memory, the ability to plan and execute and follow through with the task. Those are executive function skills. But besides that, you also need emotional regulation. Your child needs to be able to have critical thinking, problem solving. All right. So, how you do this is that you need to help your child through incorporating activities that build these skills for them. For example, chores. There's so many parents who think that children should not do chores because it's school time, they are tired. I'm sorry, because you are thinking of chores the wrong way. Chores are a big brain builder, brain booster, skill developer. Chores, just by doing chores, washing plates, mopping the floor, sweeping, is not punishment, it is enhancement. It's a big part of building discipline that kids need. It's a big part of building that independence that they need. It's a big part of building that self-reliance that they need. So chores are Okay, we are back. I'm so sorry about that. I had to quickly switch networks. I had a failure with the network I was using. But we are back. We are back. Let me put up the slides and we carry on. I hope you can hear me. We had a brief break, but we're almost at the end of the session. We have 10 more minutes before the hour is up. All right, so we're talking about the right learning environment at the level of the home, looking at the four key areas, right? We're talking about skill building. And I said, remember that learning does not happen in isolation. Learning needs critical thinking, very crucial for mathematics. All right, maths is a critical thinking, problem solving subject. And many parents don't see the connection between puzzles or logic games and mathematics. Trust me, they are very, very connected. They're very connected. I'm one of the advocates for puzzles. I tell parents, particularly purposeful parents, if your child put your child on puzzles. That's something that your child should do during school time, even on a daily basis if possible. All right, invest in puzzles. Have your kids working on puzzles. It develops the minds in ways that you will not even be able to understand. I'm talking from experience, all right? Talking from experience. I personally use a lot of puzzles. Yeah, you did lose me for a while. The network got cut off. I had to switch my connection. Right? The final key area is encouragement and support. Remember that you are supposed to be the cheerleader for your child on this journey. But beyond that, the support I'm talking about here is not just, you just standing at the sidelines and supporting your child. You need to be able to get in there, get involved. If you don't really know the nitty gritty of the processes your child has to go through daily, where they truly struggle, you need to build a relationship that allows you to gain access, that your child will be able to share with you some difficulties that some children will not want to share with their parents. All right, maybe there are some kids who get bullied at school and their parents never ever know about it. There are some children who get to the point where maybe they have being victimized by a particular teacher, they are threatened in some way, and they can't tell you that, hey, this is what's happening. I don't know, can you hear me? I don't know whether these comments are coming in later. Please, someone let me know if you can see me, because I think we are back on. I still see comments telling me that you lost me. Maybe that's when I was off. All right, so encouragement and support is crucial, but you need a relationship for this. So for those parents who are just taking this course in isolation, maybe this is your first of my courses to take, please note that it's important that you come in again to learn about how to nurture a relationship with your child. Parenting is key. Your parenting skills will most parents struggle. Their brains become hijacked when their children make mistakes. As much as they will hear me say, "Oh, you need to try to watch your reaction to mistakes," but before you know it, you've lashed out. Before you know it, you are irritable. Before you know it, you are beating your child in the morning. There's chaos. You're shouting. You don't know how to do it, how to curb the yelling. Come and learn, get trained, and build, refine your parenting skills. All right, refine, that's the core of all of these things you hear me teaching about. All right, because when the parenting skills are lacking, you will struggle with every other thing. All right, you will struggle with every other thing. So provide positive reinforcement and celebrate achievements no matter how small. I think we need to have a session. One of the voice notes, I'm going to talk to you about how to respond to your child's report card. Now, for those of us who are preparing our kids to go back to school already, one of the things you need to bring out of the cupboard is the report card. Many parents don't think about doing that because the child is going to a new level. On the contrary, you need to bring out the report card. That's what you use to set goals for the new season. That's what you use to set goals for this new level. That's what you use to already have your sights on the areas where your child is first thriving. Because many times our approach is only to focus on where the child is struggling. Most times we put so much effort on the weaknesses that we do not help our children capitalize on their strengths. You need to really know what your child's strengths are and capitalize on those while you devise a strategy to help you approach the areas where your child is struggling. If your child is not good at maths, don't just make all your efforts to be maths every time. Maybe your child is really good in history. Invest in resources that can help build that strength even more. Maybe your child is good in English, in language. All right? Invest in books that help strengthen that strength even more. All right, because sometimes, because we put so much emphasis on the weakness areas, our children start declining in the areas where they were strong. So to take the report card, the first thing you look at is the strengths. Where is my child strong? What are their areas of almost natural competency? All right, build on those, and then work on a strategy to help reinforce the areas of struggle. All right, so we are running up. We have just what, 6 minutes to go before we shut down. Nutrition and sleep. We can't talk about the home learning environment without talking about these two very important things. Now, someone asked me to talk about nutrition. Please listen to today morning's voice note. I don't know if you listened to the morning voice note. Did you listen to today morning's voice note? Let me hear in the comments if you did listen to this today's morning coffee. Have you listened to today's morning coffee? If you did, then you must acknowledge that I shared extensively on sleep, but also on nutrition. All right. Remember the sugar rush and the sugar crash. I talked about that during the morning voice note of today. Now, a hungry, tired child cannot learn. Let me say that again. A hungry, tired child cannot learn. Period. It doesn't matter whether they are attending the best school in the world or they have the best school bag, they have all the elaborate school books, they have the best pen that can write 6 different colors. A hungry, tired child cannot learn. Now, the lunchbox is a whole strategy of its own. Many parents don't realize this. One of the things most of you who have been following me for a while have seen me do is that I create a whole buzz around the lunchbox because it's so important that parents pay more attention to what they are putting into the lunch boxes of their children, because that is a fuel for their success. Breakfast is not just a meal, it should be considered as brain fuel. So don't just give bread and chocolate. The child is biting on the way, as I see people doing in the francophone regions. It's terrible. You see children in the morning, they are dressed for school, just stop by the provision store. Oh, je veux du pain, pain chocolaté. The child will take bread, one long dry bread. There's no water to even push it down. The child is biting with the chocolate and just going to school. That's not food. That is not food. All right. And if you check, the child has probably 200 francs to go and eat during break. While the child buys during break, gâteau or beignet or biscuit. And I mean, how do we expect such a child to attain the peak of their potential when their brain is not getting what it needs to help it perform? All right. So sleep is not just rest, it is restoration. The brain is like a computer. If for those of you who have laptops, when you keep using your machine without ever restarting or refreshing it, at some point it starts malfunctioning. You need to restart it. All right. Sometimes they'll tell you that it has updates. So every time your child rests, gets sufficient sleep, their their brains, kind of are refreshed and restored. All right. Now, particularly memory. If you have a child who struggles with their memory, there's a whole strategy I can help you put together to help you, help a child who has poor memory function. Right? Puzzles is one of them. Logic games is another one of them. Chores is another one of them. But sleep is another important one of them. Now, studies show that children who eat protein-rich breakfast get 8 to 10 hours of sleep perform significantly better in memory and concentration tasks. Let me take it again. Studies have shown that children who eat protein-rich breakfasts, get 8 to 10 hours of sleep, perform significantly better in memory and concentration tasks. So, protein-rich foods. Now, let me just shock you a little bit. Beignet and pap is not good breakfast for school. Because most of the pap that they buy on the side of the road, they don't put milk in it. It's just sugar. That's just starch, carbohydrates, and more carbohydrates, and then some oil. There's nothing in it that nourishes your child's brain. Bread and egg is a better option. All right? So eggs are like, they call them the multivitamin of life. And for good reason, because eggs are rich in a diverse, you can use eggs in so many ways. So let's do better. Okay? Let's do better. So time has kept me short, but I'm sure that you've gleaned a lot about how to go about creating the right. What makes the home environment right? Quick question for you before I go. If you've been following me, tell me in the comments now, what makes a learning environment right? What are the things that qualify it as being right? I said 2 things. If you can remember, then it means that you have gleaned a lot from this session. What makes the learning environment, at home, at school, what makes it right? That word right comes into play when what and what is in place. I talked about two very important things that a child needs for the learning environment to, nurture their love for learning and help them thrive. All right. So remember this: when teachers and parents collaborate, children feel supported from all sides. I cannot tell you, I think for me, the most important thing that helps my children thrive is because they know that their teachers know me, and their teachers, I talk with their teachers whenever there's a problem. So it gives the child a certain level of comfort in class that I cannot even put it into words. Is a very big factor in priming the school environment to be right for your child. I still haven't gotten my answer. What are the two things that make the home learning environment right? I've not gotten my answer yet. Were we sleeping? I'm going to give you the answer. All right. So, nurturing the love for learning, I'm going to talk about this again in the morning. Learning should never feel like punishment. You see this thing where you beat your child during homework? Stop it. Stop it. Learning and beating should never go together. No matter how frustrated you are, do not beat your child when you're trying to get them to learn. It is counterproductive. Thank you, Mama Mariama. Safety and motivation, that's it. The environment needs to be safe. And safe for what? Safe for the child to fail in without fear of repercussion. Because it is when children fail that they truly begin to learn. When children are not afraid to fail, that they truly begin to learn. Remember, the opposite of the love for learning is the fear of failure. Because the fear of failure keeps your child from trying. The child who doesn't want to do homework is afraid to fail the homework. Is afraid that you hit their head when they get the answer wrong. The child who goes to the board and doesn't want to write, the child who is afraid of the teacher's reaction if they should get the answer wrong, they will rather not answer than attempt answering and failing and then meeting those harsh consequences. So those things damage, destroy, erode the love for learning. All right? Now there's this popular figure. She's called Malala Yousafzai. Right? She's a very popular figure, I think from India. She used to trend at some point because of her. She was a strong advocate for the girl child education, I think in India. And her father ran a school, and she constantly spoke about the power of education at home. That the environment in her home nurtured her passion for learning, even in the face of danger. All right. This one of the figures that you can want to study her with your children, particularly for teenagers. She's very inspiring. She started advocating right from a very young age, and she was heard even to the corners of the earth. Malala Yousafzai. That's the name. All right. I'm gonna put it in the comments for those who want the name. All right. So I hope that you have learned or picked up a thing or two from today's session. We've already talked about parent involvement at the level of the school. Tomorrow we're going to look at collaborating with the teacher. We're going to have a teacher come on board to teach us from a teacher's perspective about how to really go about collaborating with the teacher. So prepare to ask your questions, prepare to, grill him with questions because he's very insightful too. He taught us last year. He's coming in again this year with more insight to help us, glean more or equip ourselves to better collaborate with teachers this year. Right. So nurturing the love for reading, you want to read together with your children. That's a great, it's so simple. I tell parents that one of the biggest things, you cannot raise children who love learning without books. Build your library. If your home doesn't have a home library, it is not a right learning environment because you lack the fuel for learning. Readers are leaders. Children need to read. If your children only read textbooks, you can never raise a child that loves learning. I'm sorry, you can't. All right? Read together with your children. Make reading a daily habit in your home. Choose books that interest, not just educate, but also trigger your children to want to know more. Interesting books are important. In my home, we have a blend of books. We have knowledge books, we have story books, interesting story books, we have spiritual books. It's a whole blend of different things. Explore your children's interests together with them. All right. So the more that you read, the more things you will know. That's a quote I want to leave you with today. The more you read, the more you will know. The more you read, the more you will know. The more that you learn, the more places you will go. Reading helps your children travel beyond their home, even while sitting in the comfort of your home. All right, if there are any questions, I'll quickly take them before we shut down. Time has cut me short. I had to rush over nurturing the love for reading. I'm sure we'll talk about that in the voice note maybe tomorrow. I still have to come back to you with more insight on nutrition. We're going to talk a little bit in more detail about nutrition. And if you have any other aspect that you would like to know more about, we still have 2 days, 3 days to go before the back to school webinar shuts down. All right. So feel free to ask any question you might have. If you have any concerns, what has been the highlight for you? Thanks to the parents who answered my question. The right learning environment has to be, above everything else, safe for a child to learn, because learning equals to failing repeatedly and learning from those failures. There is no true learning without failure. A child who has never failed is a child that still has a lot to learn. A child who has never failed is a child that still has a lot to learn. So learning is failure. Failure is a big part of learning. You have to work on your own fear of failure as a parent. When I tell parents, let the child repeat, some parents panic. They see repeating a class as the end of the world. It is not. There's so much your child will be able to learn, pick up on, correct themselves, adjust themselves, and move forward just because they embraced, or you helped them embrace, failure. All right. Thank you so much, dear parents. I see there are no questions. If you can't put them on the forum here, then you can put them on the WhatsApp forum. I'm going to answer them. If there's any topic, any area that you would like me to shed more light on, I'm going to do so. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about collaborating with your teacher. We're going to study that extensively because it is so important. So, Mr. Clarence will come on board. He will teach, and I will also, giving my own nuggets from my own experience and from my own experience working with teachers, and also as a parent myself, collaborating with teachers. I'm going to teach from the parent's perspective. He will teach from the teacher's perspective. We're going to bring that together to create a very rich session. Don't miss tomorrow's session. No matter what, make sure you are there. All right. We still have to look at the child who struggles academically. I'm struggling to see where and how I'm going to fit that, because I'm sure there are parents here who have, even if you don't have a child who's struggling, remember I've said the child who's succeeding today might begin to struggle tomorrow. And if you do not know what to do, your child might continue to go down in a downward spiral. And trust me, you don't want that. You need to be able to know what you can do when and if your child begins to struggle academically at any point on the academic ladder. It's the knowledge that you have that will make the difference. Thank you so much. I'm going to see you again tomorrow. I love teaching you, and I hope that you love learning from me. All right, see you tomorrow, and bye.